What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you something a little different. So I was actually very recently invited to the closed beta of Blood Bowl 3. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Blood Bowl 3 is a sort of tactical RPG meets fantasy football almost. So it's very strange and a very unique idea, if nothing else. Now, I am familiar with the franchise, though I can't even pretend to say that I've played it before, because way back when I was in high school, like a decade ago, I remember watching YouTubers play it, actually. Or that is to say, at least one of its re-releases or whatever version it is. I think the original one was released in like 1986, but here we are with Blood Bowl 3, which is what we're talking about today. This is primarily a game that you would play against people, so online, that kind of thing. However, before we get into any of that, let's talk about the fact that you need to create your team. Now, at least in closed beta, we have three options available to us: the Black Orcs, the Elven Union, or the Imperial Nobility, which is basically orcs, elves, and humans. So when you are making your team, you'll have two options basically, to either create it manually or create a balanced pre-made team, really. Now, once you have your team, regardless of whether you did it manually or picked one of the pre-made balanced teams, you can at that point customize your team actually. So in that regard, I mean, it's primarily like cosmetic stuff like patterns, jerseys, that kind of thing, who your cheerleaders are, that kind of stuff. However, if you choose to make your team manually, specifically, you'll get access to the recruitment options here. So basically, you need to kind of fill out your team, and they'll give you like a set amount of gold to make that first team with. Now, in addition to the actual players on your team, you'll also be able to hire support staff, which will be able to do various things for you. And while I wasn't able to mess with it much in the beta, it's my understanding that individual units are able to be like named, upgraded, given certain skills and things like that, which I wasn't able to show off much here, but my point is that stuff is possible. But once you finally got your team made and customized and everything, and you actually jump into the game, you'll see that honestly it's more of a tactical combat like setup more than anything else, which I personally found interesting. It's just kind of given this football-y type skin over the top of it. But when you start up the game, there's a chance for weather effects to affect the match, which will have various effects on your dice rolls and stuff. But basically, as you can see here, there is a grid, and you'll be able to pick your players, kind of attack the enemy team. Now, each team's turn is basically over after 2 minutes as a standard, or if one of your team members gets knocked down on your turn, then your turn is also over. But each turn, basically every one of your characters that has the white circle around it means they can still take an action. Each character that has a red circle around it means they've already taken their action and they can't do anything else. But you can use them to do things like attack other units, which might potentially knock them down or injure them. Use your character to attempt to run the ball, because this is basically football and we are trying to score points here. And at that point, it just kind of becomes a weird mix of Blood Bowl's system here, which is like, you know, all these dice rolls and stuff. All the squares you can see here are like -2s or whatever to the dice roll. If enemies are next to each other, they can assist against defending against your attacks. But anytime you take an action like that, it'll roll some dice, and then you can actually choose the outcome of potentially what happens. For instance, you can see here that like maybe somebody will get pushed or maybe the attacker gets down. But the point is you kind of get to choose particular outcomes to kind of help you out a little bit. Now, each match, if you will, basically lasts 16 turns, and a turn is when each team has taken that particular 2 minutes. So each turn should be 4 minutes at max, ideally less than that. But all of this combined just kind of makes this really interesting competitive experience where you kind of build your own literal fantasy football team and then pit it against other people online. And while I won't pretend to say that this is like super up my alley or anything, what an interesting concept, and it's cool to see it taken to such amazing heights considering all the things you can put into it, like customizing your team, customizing individual units, buffing those units up, giving them like extra skills and stuff apparently at some point, adding, I believe, characteristics even. So you can just do a lot of stuff here, and it's the best version of literal fantasy football. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the look at this game. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.